Welcome to this edition of the Klown Podcast. I'm Scott Burks. Hello. Please check me out on my website, www.theclowntimes.net. As you can see here, that's Clown Spirit Bouquet. You're able to find me on Facebook as well. So whether you're on your smartphone, laptop, desktop, wherever you are, wherever it may be, just type in the Klown Times. You'll find me there as well. Speaking of which, you can get the merch at cafepress.com. So to Klown Times Sports, the link will be under the description in this video. And last but not least, please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We have over 530 subscribers. Trying to get to 1,000 so I can get this baby monetized at least. So I celebrate the small victories, man. So hey, thank y'all for the support so far. Let's keep it going. Let's get the party moving. And yeah, so remember, just comment, share, subscribe. Even if you don't like what I have to say, you probably won't like a lot what I have to say tonight. But at any rate, just holler at me, man. I'll holler back. And out of the way, you be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. So tonight, I always do a HBCU sports podcast at least once a week. So normally you see my partner Dwayne Nash from the Yards of HBCU Sports, but tonight it's a special guest making this maiden voyage into the Klown Hour podcast. He is the head. He's the creator of the HBCU SportVoice podcast. You can listen to that wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. He's also a sports announcer, an analyst, voiceover actor, an educator and contributor, and most importantly, he's an A&T alum. Give it up for my guy, Jamie Walker, man. So what's up, Jamie? How are you? Welcome.
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'm glad you had me on. Glad to be on, man. I'm a big fan. And definitely a fan of you and Nash, man. Y'all crack me up because y'all keep it 100.
We keep 100, and we are very petty. It's deadly when you have two. It's deadly enough you have just one who's petty, but we have two people who are various degrees of petty, and depending on the night you catch us on, yeah, it could get very,
absolutely.
It could get very, very interesting. And you've seen stories. You've seen us tell stories about people hollering at us from the SWAC. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Hollering at the way from the SWAC, going back and forth with them. Man, it's just funny, especially with Jackson State alums. They're a pretty funny bunch. But anyway, man. So before we get started, man, tell us more about yourself. Like, since you're making your maiden voyage to the podcast, plan to have you back many times later in the future, Dwayne and I. But just going through right quick, like, tell us about like what you do now with your podcast, like what you all doing in the HBCU sports space.
Well, of course, Jamie Walker, North Carolina A&T grad. You see the background, you see the pride behind me, baby. 02 graduate of A&T.
All right.
Been out for a minute, man. Educator by trade, but been in this sports space for over 20 years in a whole bunch of capacities. Announcer, PA announcer, play-by-play, color analyst for the Black College Sports Network, for HBCU League Pass. I've done some work with them. Locally done radio and production here in the Atlanta area. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, WAOK 1380 AM. Kind of seen it all, done it all. Former beat writer for the Atlanta Voice for covering HBCU football, but along with that, the Atlanta Falcons. So kind of seen it all, done it all, man.
Wow. So basically here's the penny coming out. So basically every March 28th is not a good day in the city of Atlanta.
Man, listen, it gets so depressing around these parts. But yeah, man, it's crazy.
You know, and I'll be really quick on this point before we move forward, man. You know, since that moment in the Super Bowl, I was obviously pulling for you guys. I hate the Patriots. Not as much as they don't have Tom Brady, but much respect to the GOAT. But anyway, I don't like the Patriots. And, you know, everybody else outside of the New England area were depressed at the end of the game. Let's put it that way, very disappointed. But except in New Orleans, where they have signs. See, you know, so they have like signs and memes and, believe it or not, T-shirts. Every March 28th, they remind the sports world why March 28th is a special day for them specifically.
Yes. It is, but I mean, if I were them, I wouldn't talk because they've been under the worst buzzard luck ever when it comes to stuff since then. So I mean, they get their pieces, dude undercuts a guy and lets him run right into the end zone. Then they get a bad call on a pass interference.
Right.
Then a couple other things happen in Minnesota, the Minnesota Miracle. So look, we just traded and passed that luck right on down I-20 to I-10. So yeah, man. So they still take their shots, but it's all good.
I have one of my best friends in college. He's from New Orleans. Well, not from New Orleans. He's from Louisiana, from Lafayette, and he's a big Saints fan. And he calls. I'm not going to disrespect you by what he calls the Falcons, but I'll say this: he and many other Saints fans will say, "We used to won the Super Bowl," and just rub that for perpetuity. And
they're gonna ride that. They're gonna ride it, which is understandable. They got a ring. I get it.
But I did not realize how petty that rivalry is. I mean, it's like the pettiest rivalry in all of sports. It is so petty between the two of y'all.
It is one of the ugliest. It is one of the most unknown major rivalries there is. Like I don't think the rest of the country really understands just how petty it gets. Like I even cringe at some of the things people say when it comes to the rival. I mean, I've been to New Orleans games in New Orleans when Atlanta has won and trying to fight my way back to the hotel and vice versa when it come and beat Atlanta, beat the Falcons in the Georgia Dome / the Mercedes-Benz Stadium when they second lining down the street and you see all kinds of musical instruments and you just can't say anything but say nothing but walk to your car. So man, it's petty. It is. People just don't understand. You could compare it to Carolina Duke, which is a little more friendlier. It can get ugly when it comes to Falcons-Saints. So yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy. It's funny as hell to me, but
it is.
It's petty. It's petty and funny. Speaking of petty and funny, let's get to HBCU football. I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but there's a group there's a couple of SWAC groups, right? And within that one of the SWAC groups I'm in, the petty trash talk between all the fan bases is downright hysterical. It's comic gold. And the people who have left the most now, as you know, these days are the Jackson State Tiger fans. Like since Coach Prime arrived and is doing the damn thing. He's a damn unicorn. We all know that. But I'll say this, man. Jackson State's 4-0. No, 5-0. 5-0. Excuse me. And they are ranked 8th in the nation, if I'm not mistaken. And it doesn't look like anybody is stopping them anytime soon. I know they play, I think Alabama State for Alabama State's homecoming, which is dangerous, schedule for homecoming. But nevertheless, do you see anybody stopping Jackson State in 2022 in the SWAC?
In the SWAC, there are a couple of teams I think that could give them trouble. But it will all depend on the depth of the team. And what I mean by that is Jackson State has gone and done a great job in recruiting. And what I mean by using the transfer portal. And they've used the transfer portal not just to get athletes that can be primetime, so to speak, athletes on that start, but they have interchangeable parts that last throughout a ball game. That is the biggest thing you have to overcome in beating them. I think because they this year so far they started out slow, except for the FAMU game, which they came out hot in the first half. But subsequently they've been starting slow. So I think if you can get a team that plays really good defense and runs the ball and kills the clock, I think you can be involved in the game. And I think there's two teams that can do that. I think Prairie View and I think Alcorn could possibly give them trouble. And because those teams both run the football well and they play pretty good defense. So, but otherwise, Jackson State's depth is the biggest thing that occurs when it comes to trying to overcome what they do. Yes, they can do some things offensively. Shador Sanders is playing outstanding football. I think they have a running game with, ex-Dell State player, Savion Wilkerson, and others. And they can do things on the defensive end too, where you got, you can, continue bringing in linemen that can stop the run and rush the passer. So when with their ability to bring in people in droves, I think that is the biggest thing to overcome when it comes to Jackson State. Those two teams that I named, I think can give them trouble initially. And I think if you can, punch and keep punching, if you have the ability to throw the knockout punch, they may waver. But right now, I think that Jackson State is too strong just because of all the players that they can have that can actually play.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, they come in waves, man. Now, speaking of talent, Travis Hunter. I heard he's been nicked up. I heard he's coming back this weekend for the homecoming game at Alabama State. How does he look to you so far?
Well, I mean, if you saw the spring game, I don't give too much notoriety to that, only because spring games tend to be a glorified scrimmage, a glorified basically practice.
Right.
But you could see the talent within it. I being here in the Atlanta area, I was able to cover him in high school ball, and you were able to kind of see where the talent was and why he was ranked so high coming out of high school out of Collins Hill High School here in Georgia Lawrenceville or Collins Hill. So you saw the talent there. What you can see, especially playing at Jackson State, is they're allowing him to play both ways and have freedom of movement.
Yes.
The one game that he did play against FAMU, you could see his ability to be able to break on the football. And the way their defense is schemed up, he is allowed to be able to take chances because you have quality safeties behind him, and you have other players that can make up for the risk that he may take. But also, he is highly skilled as a freshman coming in to college football. Now, I don't care what level you're talking about. He could play anywhere. It just so happens he's at Jackson State playing under the best corner that arguably ever lived. So I think his skill set allows him to be able to cover so much that you can see the talent is all there. Now, what you hope is that his injuries aren't so much that it takes away from what he's able to do, and I think they want to showcase that. So I think he'll be fine going forward. I think this game, I'm not even sure if this is the game you should probably bring him back in because, quite honestly, Alabama State's not going to throw the ball a whole lot. That's not what they do. They want to run the football. And so he'll get involved in tackling more than it is anything. So if he's nicked up, I think Jackson State is capable of beating them without him anyway. But bringing him back this game would only be because so many eyes are looking at this game.
Yeah, exactly. This will be interesting to see because, again, I don't see anybody stopping Jackson State. Now, let's fast forward. I know we tend to not to look ahead in sports in general because that always gets your ass beat, right? Usually. But I see Prairie View in the West. Playing very decent, very, very good ball, actually. And Grambling's a disappointment. Let's start with Grambling first, quickly. We know it's going to be some growing pains having, Hugh Jackson putting the system in. It's going to take a while, but do you are the fans in Grambling State and Grambling, is it a huge disappointment for them to get up to the slow start they've had so far? I mean, because a lot of people expected big things, even in year one, fair or not, of the Hugh Jackson era.
Well, man, I mean, when you're dealing with fans, they're always going to take a fanatical approach to anything.
Sure.
The name Hugh Jackson carries credibility. He has done some great things offensively in collegiate football. USC and him having Chris Palmer and that offense and things of that nature. And he's run some highly skilled offenses in the NFL. Well, even though you're able to recruit and get talent through the transfer portal, even at Grambling, because he's definitely recruited. You can see the West Coast influence already on Grambling. So whenever you have his name involved in that, you're going to have high hopes from the fan base. But you got to understand, they still got to be coached up. And he has to have time to be able to do these things. Even, Coach Prime had a spring season. They didn't do that well in spring season. They did probably better than you would think. People tend to forget that. So, I remember that first spring game that Jackson State had. They played Edward Waters, and Edward Waters wasn't necessarily the juggernaut you wanted, but Jackson State wasn't full go. So I think people have to give Grambling a chance and Hugh Jackson a chance to be able to let him run his program. And I think whenever you recruit and whenever you bring these players in, what you're hoping, number one, is that quality players come in and run your system. But also, we're in a different time when it comes to these players, and being that there's a transfer portal available, if they don't see themselves playing or being good, they have options now. So you got to constantly recruit if you're a coach. So what you're hoping is that Hugh can hold the players, the talented players that he has right now, and bring in others. So I think with time he'll be just fine. But you could also see why he wanted to bring in the likes of what's his name?
Art Browse.
Art Browse coming in, because I think offensively having that mind or having another mind. Art Browse is a known collegiate offensive mind. What he did in high schools in Texas before he went to Baylor and so on and so forth are legendary. So when you're talking about bringing someone like that in, I think that was a plus, because I think knowing how to manage kids on a high school level converting into college would have been good, but the baggage that comes with it may not be what the fan base wants. So they had to back up off of him. But I think if you give Grambling some time, and if you can let Coach Jackson continue to recruit, I think they'll be fine. I think the West is up there for the taking. You got some people that are there. Bubba McDowell at Prairie View right now is proving that he is worth staying. People were cold on him, but right now he's doing the doggone thing right now. So we'll see how that happens. You still got my man Coach McNair over there at Alcorn, who just sits back, is quiet, and just goes and does his job. That's it. And they continue to produce regardless of who the quarterback is, what personnel they have. They continue to just win. So that West is up for grabs, but I'm curious to see how that develops. But Grambling will be okay. They just got to give it some time.
Yeah. And last thing about that, I mentioned Prairie View earlier, and I'm glad you touched on with Bubba McDowell, also a former NFLer. Great player for the Oilers. By the way,
House of Pain.
That House of Pain. And also, real quick, to the Titans ownership, I know you own the Houston Oilers name. Do us all a solid and just give that name and call us back to the NFL so they can rightly give it to Houston. Get rid of the stupid ass Texans name. Bring back the baby blue and red. Bring back the sweet uniforms. Even though I'm a Steelers fan, I grew up hating the Oilers, but still, bring those bad boys back. The Oilers should be in Houston, where they belong. But anyway, that's all.
Totally agree.
But anyway, I think Prairie View, they could sneak up. They could potentially sneak up on Jackson State if they were to meet in the conference championship game. I just think, God, this is like Jackson State's party, and everybody else is just hanging out. That's just the way it is.
I totally agree, man, because I think Jackson State is going to run away with the East. So they're probably going to host the game again. And so a team having to come to Jackson once again, first of all, the atmosphere. I was there last year for the SWAC championship game. And what I will tell you is that is a phenomenal atmosphere. They get up for Jackson State, which is great. But you have to do stuff that you are not accustomed to doing. And let's say Prairie View gets into the championship game. I'm not sure if their offense can combat what Jackson State's going to do. They may start off slow, but eventually they catch on. And you got to be able to score some points. So can Prairie View score enough points to be able to combat what Jackson State is going to do? We don't know yet, but hey, we still hypotheticals at this point. So we'll see.
Yes, exactly. Let's switch gears right quick from the SWAC to the MEAC, where we recently loved, and we'll get into why later with A&T. But as you know, the MEAC's only 5-6 teams now, and Central. Unfortunately, they're doing the damn thing. Unfortunately, but anyway, but they did lose to Campbell. But Campbell is legit. Campbell, despite the Campbell's slow start, Campbell's legit, and they're going to play Jackson State later on this month, and I'm really going to be interested in that game. But nevertheless, Central also had a good win at New Hampshire too, so you can't really knock them. But the point being is that I don't see anybody really stopping Central. I think Central probably is going to make it back to. I don't know. Have they made the Celebration Bowl?
Yeah, they've been in one. They lost to Grambling.
Okay, that's right. That's right. So they'll be back.
I want to say the second or third Celebration Bowl. So okay. Yeah.
Okay, so they'll be the second time. So be it as it may, I guess we should pencil in Central because I really don't see anybody overtaking Central. I mean, maybe South Carolina State, but they're so far behind them. And I just Central's looking pretty good, basically.
Central's looking great, man. Take this Campbell loss away, and Central looks the part. But what I'll tell you is, Buddy Pugh down in South Carolina State's not gonna just give this up quietly. They love the taste of success. They love what happened last year, and they have been in that conference a long time and know how to win. Right. The key for them is getting back to what they've been accustomed to doing. That is stopping the run and being able to run the football. Kendra Flowers was out against A&T. Not to say it wouldn't have stopped them, because I think you just really had a contrast of styles when it came to that game. Right. South Carolina State plays a brutal schedule in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I think this week when they go up against FAMU, you'll kind of see what the new regime is, because he didn't pull any punches when it came to the quarterback play and Corey Fields not really performing up to par. So I think they're going to go with the backup that's been in, and he's not the passer that Corey Fields even was, which is saying something. But I think they may have a little more athleticism at the quarterback position, and they may go back to doing what they've been able to do. But I think Central brings some physicality that they haven't brought in a very long time. Davius Richard is playing at a phenomenal level, both passing and running. That is the only thing that kind of worries me about Central, because they haven't really been able to run the ball effectively with their running backs. Really, and you see a few of their games, Davius Richard has actually been the leading rusher. So I'm not exactly sure. And they got some offensive line woes right now. So I think them going into this bye week kind of gets them healthy. But as they go into MEAC play, I think there's a couple of teams. I would even beg to say, because now everybody's standings are kind of jumbled up. The teams you expected to be there at the end now are like, okay, what happened to Norfolk State? What happened to, Delaware State? What happened,
right.
Delaware State was one of those teams that you thought would probably get in there, and they had a good victory last week. But, after losing Savion Wilkerson, they have some remnants of a running game, but they're kind of in and out. Norfolk State's just falling completely off the table. They don't have, J.J. Davis is not doing what he normally does. Their defense is not playing well. We'll see if they get back into the swing of things in MEAC play. But, Central's conference to lose, because they seem the most I won't even say talented, but just the most consistent and a full team. Right. But I think South Carolina could have something to say. And watch out for Morgan State. Morgan State, of course, as an A&T grad, they always snuck up to bite us. Like out of nowhere.
I know.
And then all of a sudden we losing to Morgan. But that just tells Damon Wilson, coming over there, everybody picked them last, including myself. Hey man, they just putting their head down and working. So they're gonna get somebody. And Howard, I'm just not sure what you're gonna get out of Howard. They have some pieces, but Quentin Williams at the quarterback position is not doing what you thought he would do going into basically his senior year. I mean, people don't realize the last starting quarterback for Howard before Quentin Williams was Kalen Newton.
That's right.
So
Cam Newton's brother,
Quentin Williams has been playing quarterback for Howard a long time. And so you just expected him to be, to be that dude, and it hasn't happened for them so far. So, they got some pieces on defense. Darian Brokenberg, they can run the football. They got, Ian Wheeler and Eden James and a few more people that can run the football. And I think if they can put some things together, they'll be all right. But Central is definitely the team that seems to have everything together, minus that Campbell loss.
Yeah, that's exactly. So before we move on, let's give some quick shout out to the sponsors at BetUS.com. So let's get to it. So listen up, sports bettors. Your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB, as well as college football. So if you're looking for live in-game betting, incredible odds with daily odds boosters, props, and parlays, got them. And how about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? We got that too. So log to betus.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Also use the promo code TKT for the Klown Times. So betus.com, where the game begins. All right, let's get to what we want to really talk about. That's our beloved Aggies in the Big South. I mean, we all know they moved from the MEAC to the Big South. Now about to move from the Big South to the Colonial Athletic Association, or the CAA. We've been favored to win the Big South this year, all of like maybe 6-7 teams as well. But, you know, we got the good win against Bryant last weekend, but we're 2-3. We've been kind of like struggling a little bit ever since we left the MEAC for greener pastures. And who knows how the struggle will be once you get to the CAA when you got there's a gang of teams in there right now, man. I'm counting what 12, 13, 14 teams right now in the CAA, and this about to be bigger than that because I think Campbell's moving to the CAA along with A&T, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll get the CAA component later. But what is with A&T struggles ever since they moved to greener pastures? Is it the budget thing with higher spending PWIs they're going up against? What's going on with our Aggies since we made the move from the MEAC when we dominated the MEAC?
I think it's a matter of budgeting. I also think it's a conference difference. And I think when you see certain opponents and just the conditions of the conference, the style of play, there are a bunch of factors that go into play when it comes to that. The same things you did in the because I think there is a such thing as a conference identity, especially in the style of ball they play. And so getting accustomed to that style in the Big South, I think is something you had to get accustomed to. Anybody that expected A&T to just go in and win it immediately, you know, that's fool's gold.
Correct.
There are only certain teams that are able to do that. To be able to go in and immediately compete. You know, I'll give kudos to FAMU, you know, going into the SWAC last year and being able to compete, finishing second in the East and, you know, getting to having a playoff run or getting to the playoff game. I think, you know, that's an anomaly. And so I think when you go into a new conference where you're facing new teams and getting accustomed to what those teams do and things of that nature, I think you have to get accustomed to what they do. And so that's part of it. Also, you know, we kind of talked about this, you know, pre-show, you know, they got to get back to playing disciplined football. And I think when it comes to, and Coach Sam Washington even spoke about this from last year. He talked about the discipline, the type of football that A&T needed to establish again. And that is being disciplined. You know, they would have, you know, just breakdowns where they got penalties and, you know, giving up big plays and things of that nature. It was, what was the last year? I think the loss to Gardner-Webb really highlighted this last year where they were just so undisciplined and giving up a ton of points at the end of the game after essentially having the game won. And so I think this year it was an emphasis of, you know, being picked to definitely win the conference. And I think outside of Campbell, because I think that was the X factor as far as what they were going to be. Campbell recruited at a high level, but you didn't know if they would turn those players into you know, high achievers so quick. So A&T, I think, was the right choice coaching wise, or the coaches choosing who would win the conference. But I think, they have definitely accelerated their pace as far as being a good team, and they'll be moving into the CAA next year. But I think A&T has a formula to be able to compete, definitely with the Big South. They should finish no lower than second. If we're talking realistically right now, they have an opportunity if they beat Campbell to win the Big South. But if you look at Campbell and the way the teams stack up, their size versus what A&T does, if you're just comparing the triangle of Central, Campbell, A&T, if you're just looking at that from outside the number standpoint, who beat who and how, likelihood is, hey, who knows? You never know what happens. A&T could slip up and beat Campbell. Campbell could very likely beat, us. So it just depends. I think they'll have to have a good game. You're playing them on homecoming for some godforsaken reason.
No. Why did they do that? Why did they schedule Campbell for home? Wow.
I have no idea. It had to be in advance. It had to be. But with the teams leaving the Big South, I think it just got jumbled up. Why couldn't you play Edward Waters or somebody else for homecoming? Beats me. But yeah. So we'll see how that happens because they got Haj Malik, Williams quarterback over there. They got a huge line. We're gonna see what happens. I mean, again, A&T's defense is still one of the perennial defenses in FCS football. They're still playing at a high level. Offensively, man, we got to settle on a quarterback and just go with the same rhythm, man. You got that guy Bashul Tootin that's toting that rock. Wesley Graves and Charlie Dixon running the football. So they need to go back to that ugly, boring football that we used to see in Aggie Stadium back in the day, where we're going to run the football 40 times and then throw it 3. So they have to go back that football.
Little outdated formula, right? It's a tad
man.
bit outdated. It's a tad bit outdated.
Exactly. So they just need to settle on a quarterback, man, and just do what they do. But just getting disciplined. You saw a piece of that during the Bryant game where, they're getting back to doing what they do as far as running the football, playing good defense, controlling the clock. You saw that in South Carolina State, definitely. But you saw that in the Bryant game. What people don't realize, you may know what Bryant is, but coming from the Northeast Conference. And then even this year, they almost beat FIU. I think it was FIU. Yeah, it was FIU. And they're offensively, they averaged 31 points. So this defense stopped a really good passing attack of Bryant. So that's great because the secondary is one of the problems that, was an issue last year with the Aggies. Brought in a new secondary coach. And that's the other thing. There was a bunch of coaching changes this year within that staff. You know what I'm saying? Denzel Jones, linebackers coach, along with, head coach, Sean Gibbs, who's the assistant head coach. They're at Fort Valley now. And so you bringing in, new personnel. They're having to gel with that. Not giving any excuses, but that's just the situation. I mean, that's just the real thing. And so when it comes to, them gelling at this point, hopefully what you're seeing is them coming into prominence at this point, starting off slow. I hated that we played Central the first game. Hated it because of so much new stuff going on. But it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, you gotta make that money too with Charlotte. Yeah, so here's the thing too. You mentioned the CAA. We're moving to CAA next year, obviously. The good news is we get to crack down on our travel budget a little bit because as I understand it, it's gonna be kind of like in pods. You know what I mean? It's like we'll play the teams closest to us more often than the ones away from us. So it's not in divisions. I think I don't know if they're gonna put in divisions or not, but at least we'll get the likes of Elon, which is gonna be a natural rivalry. William and Mary, of course, Hampton being there from the MEAC days as well. Richmond, of course, we know that Campbell's moving along with us. But the thing is that you're going up against the likes of Delaware, who's a powerhouse. God is a powerhouse.
Yes.
We beat New Hampshire this year. I mean, not we, but Central beat New Hampshire this year, but New Hampshire's still legit. I mentioned William Mary earlier. They're legit. Monmouth's aren't not bad either. Not as Villanova. But you're coming in with these higher budgeted PWIs on the FCS level. But also, too, I noticed that a lot of our fans don't care as much. What I mean by that is like as in going to the games since we left the MEAC. And I don't know how that's going to change with the CAA, which is to me is a step up from the Big South. So all that to say is, should we be worried about A&T's prospects joining CAA, whether it's for greener pastures or step up in competition, wherever it is? Would it be more of a cost than a benefit in the long run for us?
Great question. Because I think we were actually talking on social media today about the volleyball team not doing well right now in CAA play. What you're going to have to do whenever you get to a new conference, especially a conference that is, especially in football, a perennial winner. They put 3 or 4 teams in the playoffs every year, and it is a step up from the Big South for sure, especially when it comes to just playoffs in general. Whether or not the risk is worth the reward, I kind of am mixed with it because it depends on what the strategic plan of the school is and just what the mission of the school is in general to be amongst that. But along with that, you're looking at not just them being competitive sports-wise, but in academic circles, which they talked about. So I think that may be an advantage in becoming an R1 institution, a Research 1 institution.
Right.
But if we're strictly talking about sports, I think there are pieces or places we can be competitive, but I don't think it's going to be football immediately. Okay. Although, what I will say is this. If you're talking about division play, the way it's been rumored for it to be north-south, then I think you got a chance. You got Hampton, you got William and Mary. Yes, you have Elon. And I'm going to even talk about the people attending the game. One of last year's mostly high attended games was Elon, even more so than the HBCU games that we played at Aggie Stadium. This is the argument that I often get into, or truest Stadium now. Let me call it. Let me give it its name.
Yeah.
But
I still call it BB.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Oh yeah. But Elon was a packed game, and so if you compare that to Morgan State, when we played Morgan State at home, it's a no-brainer. So I think if you have Campbell, Elon, Richmond, definitely Hampton, you're going to have, I think the attendance is going to actually go up, to be quite honest with you. I think it's unique in that way because, I get in arguments with SWAC folks all the time, which is it's good-natured banter about us leaving the conference. Some of it's crazy, but, others of it, you left this conference for this and what you thought was going to be greener pastures. And I'm like, you all or teams within the SWAC couldn't do this because it would be different. But us leaving and going to the CAA is not gonna break up the most of the natural rivalries that we already have. We're gonna continue playing Central. We're playing Norfolk State. We're bringing Winston-Salem State back in. So we're playing Elon. We're playing Campbell. So I think the attendance will take care of itself. I think it'll be fine. The one rivalry I hate losing is the South Carolina State one because I don't think we have any room, being that we're playing a heavy conference schedule to put them back on until at least like 2028 to 30. Wow. So that's gonna be that one hurt. That one hurt because love playing those guys. Love it. I mean, it's just one of those rivalries that come up. But I understand business is business, and business will continue to be what it is. But I think if you're able to get, and even going into the media space, if you're able to get, and we'll see, CAA is a flow sports conference right now, but that deal is about to come up, so we'll see the economic impact of that. But Chancellor Martin didn't pull in, AD Earl Hilton didn't pull any punches when it came to you alumni gonna have to step up. Y'all, we need some more money, and this is what we need, and this is our plan, which I love the strategic plan. I love the layout. They didn't mince words. They said, hey, this is what we got to do. Here are the budgets in the conference. we need you to step up. And I think they will, because everything that A&T does, ends up being great. So I think they have those plans in place. So I think we'll be fine. But I think there's going to be some sports that we're going to, scratch our head and say, what in the world happened? We're going to take some lumps initially. Oh, yeah. I think basketball, both men's and women's, could be the quickest to adjust just because of the sheer numbers.
Right.
But the CAA is a pretty good basketball conference itself. So we'll see how that goes. We just got, rid of, Coach Jones. And so we'll see, how it works going forward. But if you can recruit and get some players in, you can change the trajectory of your conference. So to answer your question, it just remains to be seen whether or not it's a good move or not. Because when it comes to shifting conferences, sometimes you will lose a generation of fans, and you have to grow that audience back. And so we'll see what happens, man. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be very interesting. I will say this: you touched on it earlier. It's not surprising. It surprised me, but it's not surprising that we had our best crowd with the Elon game, because Elon is essentially right down the street. It's right down.
Exactly.
It's in Burlington. For those who don't know geographically about North Carolina, Burlington and Greensboro are only maybe 20 miles apart of that. So that's a natural rivalry right there. So it shocked me at first, but now quickly I was like, well, it makes sense because they're so close in proximity. And you have a lot of Elon fans, you have a lot of A&T fans, you have families of both, believe it or not. So it's the coolest thing to me about the CAA is we get that rivalry with Elon right away.
Absolutely.
And that's
absolutely. It's gonna be interesting, man, just how those new rivalries kind of emerge. And again, I think the football attendance goes up. I really do. I think it's a matter of, you don't have, FAMU, you're not traveling to Florida anymore.
Right.
The Bethune-Cookman games, if you just keeping it a buck, man, there are certain games a crowd didn't travel and didn't bring out the fan base.
Right.
And so I think you can't analyze it and compare it to teams in the SWAC because it was just different. But even with them, there are some games, you've heard coaches, Coach Prime being one of them. Hey, when we're playing so-and-so, the stadium's packed. But when we're playing this team, it's not like that. Well, it's the same thing that happens in the MEAC, or the same thing that happens at A&T. There are certain teams, that churn out the crowds. Then there are some games that are absolute duds, and you can count people in the stadium. I mean, it just is what it is. But I think, being in a new conference, if people embrace what that is, and especially if you can get some home games with people that's right down the street and establish those new rivalries, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on there. So on that note, let's call it, man. So before I wrap things up, remind the people where they can find you on whether it be your Twitter, your podcast, wherever.
Absolutely, man. Look, you can find me on Twitter at SportVoiceJW. SportVoiceJW. And typically on Fridays, it's not a podcast in your classic sense. It's more like an audio report. I talk about the games that's coming up, and I give focused questions on each conference about what that most intriguing game, or what I feel the most intriguing game is. And just ask a question leading you into the actual game, man. So that is called HBCU SportVoice, man. And make sure you tune in wherever, Spotify, a Anchor, wherever you listen to your podcast, go hear it.
Nice. It's a video podcast. It's an audio.
Audio. It's totally audio. You can also now, if you want to see me on video, I'll be calling. I do some both play-by-play and color for ESPN Plus. I'll be at Lane College this weekend. Yeah, I'll be at Lane College homecoming for their homecoming. They'll be hosting Kentucky State. That is 3 Eastern. So I'll be on there, ESPN Plus.
That is dope, man. I didn't know you do ESPN Plus. So that's dope. Okay, cool. Well, shoot, I should be asking for your autograph. But anyway. Well, anyway, man, this has been fun, man. We've been talking about this for a while. I know Dwayne and I, talking about this, for having you on for a while. We're gonna have you back soon, man. But anyway, man, thank you for coming on. And yeah, man, let's do this again. And
absolutely, man. I enjoy it. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. And also, folks, please remember to, well, a few things. Get the merch, CAApress.com, search for Klown Times Sports. Go to clowntimes.net, Klown spelled with K, and continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did, excuse me. Until next time, enjoy this weekend slate of college games, HBCUs, or whatever. Until next time, peace.